All right. Well, here we go. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Graham Academy viewers who are with us today, and welcome for those of you who are going to be watching this later. This is a collaboration project between Grossmore Summer Music and the Stage Store here on Rogers Cornerbrook. So thank you all so much for taking part, and thank you all for watching. This is a new way of doing our interviews, but we're glad to be able to do them. And this week we are here with the Once. Of course, the Once is a very well-known trio of Newfoundland musicians, Jerry Hollett, Phil Churchill, and Andrew Dale. So welcome, folks, to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Phil is waiting to be on camera.
Okay, he wants to make an entrance. That's all good. So I guess we'll start with you, Jerry, since you're right in front of me on my screen. So I always love asking this question, but what started your journey into music and becoming this group?
How far back should I go?
What's the first thing now? The moment that you were like, hey, I want to do this.
When I applied for a glee club in grade 2, and my teachers said I was too quiet, so I didn't get in. And then the next year that year I kept singing really loudly in front of a mirror, loudly and louder and louder. And then there, outside, because there was no one around, just me and seagulls. I grew up in a really small community, 16 houses. And so the next year I sang loud enough that I could be in the glee club. So I was very excited. I think we did 2 shows, 2 performers. I don't even think it was shows. I think we just got together twice. But it was a big deal at the time. And I remember my mom really just putting music in our minds and our hearts and her family, because they love to sing and play music. So it was just a part of who I was really early. And I got to see performances. I got to see the Dolly Partons of the world, and I got to see the Loretta Lynn's, and very country feel out on the Burin Peninsula. And I just wanted to be able to give like that. And then I ended up doing theater. I got a little sidetracked, but I think I got sidetracked because I had to find Phil. And this is Phil. And we started playing music together over at Sir Wilfrid Grenfell College, just here in Cornerbrook, where we just started living here now. And then because of that, we ended up working out in Trinity, where we met Andrew Dale, who was a music student and a beautiful instrumentalist, great singer in his own right too. And we just all got together and started playing music because the artistic director said she had a show that she had sold out, and she told us about it that afternoon, and we had to get together and learn a couple songs. And luckily Andrew and myself had done some music before. Phil and Andrew had done at a different year, so we were all there 3 different years. So Phil and Andrew and myself were there a year, Phil and Andrew were there a year, and then we were all there together. And so we were like, okay, well, we can do something. And it worked out. And I remember getting goosebumps the first time we sang together. And I was like, okay, Path, I see it. Mm-hmm. And they just kept going from there.
Yeah, no, it's certainly been a journey. And I know, Jerry, you often talk about having kind of that, you have that song, Do You Believe in Fate? And it's all those steps. And I know I've heard you talk about it in concerts, about all these different ways that you've found those little connections between you folks.
Yeah, and whether you believe that stuff or not, there's a whole lot of stuff that makes you go, well, I mean, it makes sense to believe in fate, because we ended up doing a couple songs together, and then there's a proprietor in the town that said, can you play over here? And we played there. And then we were just doing a couple demos and stuff on the go. And then a lady said, I can get you a festival in Lunenburg. So we ended up going outside of the province, and for the first time. And there was a gent there who gave us money to do an album because he liked what he was hearing. And they were, like most people, were upset because you usually go to a festival with an album. and that's part of the scene. But but they ended up having us anyway, and it worked out really well for us. And because of that guy, that angel investor giving us that money, it really set us on a path. And then just a few years ago, when we were thinking we're gonna quit this, I don't know, this is really hard work. This is really hard work, you know. We fell into passenger's lap pretty much at a radio station, and from there we ended up getting to travel the world together. And it was almost like the world said, "No, no, no, you're not stopping. We're not gonna let you." So we keep continuing on.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way of putting it is, you really never know what's going to happen next. And,
No,
luckily, it's often a good thing. Uh,
also, in just so you know, like we kept saying yes to a lot of things too. So it was, the fate thing. I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. But to say yes to things and to be open to the possibilities of anything happening, that's what it is. That's what keeps you going, I think,
Yeah,
personally.
and not necessarily recognizing that you've got something special that you're going to do for the next 10 years, just recognizing that you found something that is worth some effort, worth some time, worth not just kind of walking away from. And, because you never know what's going to turn into anything. But if you don't at least kind of take a few steps down that path, then you're not going to know. So whether that's trying your hand at songwriting, learning a new instrument to go along with somebody that you've met who plays something else, being able to be malleable and kind of go down some different paths until something sort of clicks a little bit, you know, because there's naivety that was involved too, like going to that festival and we didn't purposely go without an album. We didn't know you needed to have one. So saying yes and going and doing stuff without even really that experience of saying yes and then figuring out how to do it later rather than realizing what all the different pitfalls are ahead of time and then making your decision on whether to do something based on that. In our experience, we did it the other way around. Say yes and figure it out later.
Yeah, I think, the enthusiastic yes really does get artists out there, and it really works to make sure that, it's like, yes, absolutely, I will do that. And then you make sure that you live up to it and put the work in. And
yeah, that's it. Make sure that
there you are.
And have fun learning how to live up to it. It's kind of a job where you can't go head first and nothing really bad is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
We're not like, oh, I'm going to do a surgery today for the first time, and I'll just learn as I go.
Yeah.
It's like, I just got to learn another chord and learn how to play it a lot better. Learn some techniques for singing, songwriting, just learn the skills. Yeah, it's fun. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. So Phil, I'm going to move on and ask a question to you. You are from Corner Brook.
Yes.
So, you kind of grew up in Corner Brook, which, as we know, is a place surrounded in a lot of music. So what kind of launched you on the first path, the first step that you took toward this?
The first, Gary Graham.
Mm.
When I first moved to, I started off life here and I moved back here to start grade 1, following my parents around while they were going to university. And when I got back, Gary Graham was the organist and choir director at my dad's church. My dad was a minister at St. John the Evangelist downtown. And Gary was also the choir director at my school, which was SD Cook, which is no longer an elementary school now. So basically, every day and twice on Fridays, quite literally, was Gary Graham sort of. It was a strange kind of thing because there was watching a no one left behind kind of thing. There were kids who just couldn't carry a tune in a bucket, and he would go and he would knuckle into your lungs and push you up to the note, and everybody would laugh and everybody loved it and stuff. And it was that path of going, because I have a lot of other interests, a lot of things that I'm into, but the recognition of this can be one of those things, and you can pursue it at whatever level you are at in terms of, talent, um, and time.
And
You
skill.
know, you can increase your skill level, but just that idea of you know seeing that there was sort of multiple different levels that you could engage in this stuff at. So it started with that, and then Katie took piano lessons for a little bit, but didn't really enjoy that. But I don't think it was so much. I love the piano. It was just realizing that the structure of that type of learning didn't really sit with me, because I wanted to have this be one of the many things that I really enjoyed doing. And at the level that learning classical piano came at was a bit, and I wasn't really realizing what it was that I was looking for. And ultimately, it came down to the enjoyment of music was to be in a band and play with others. It was less of a performance thing and more of a collaborative thing that I was finding out of music. The
Hmm.
performance side has never really been something that I've loved, and still don't really. That's not where the love of it comes through. But it all kind of started with again, Gary kind of showing that, a bunch of kids together in a room, and some you could tell it's like, this is your path, this is what you're going to do, and others who are just like, oh, you don't really have a huge interest in this, but you're a really, really good natural singer. And then others who are like, I don't can't carry a tune in a bucket, not too interested, but still there in the class for some reason. And I think it was that group that I've always been most interested in, and seeing the window to that group through Gary, and what that group has to offer. You know what I mean? Because I think very easy for somebody without discernible natural ability right out of the gate, and that desire, and because generally, if you don't have that, people don't keep hounding you to find out what it is that you can do. And I've met brilliant music producers and writers who can't really play instruments very well and can't really sing,
They don't need to.
but they don't need to, because they've managed to kind of get to that level of being able to do that sort of stuff. So that kind of, again, that's where it all started, was grade 1, Gary Graham.
Well, there we go. I'm sure many people in Corner Brook, including people watching now, can certainly agree with that.
Oh,
He
yeah.
played a big part in making Corner Brook a musical center as it is.
We were just a quick little anecdote. One of our first festivals that we played at, we ended up getting invited to this house for this kind of hoity-toity sort of wine and cheese thing before our show, and everyone was, very well coiffed and very erudite and very put together and stuff, and I immediately sort of like felt very out of my league in terms of conversation about music and stuff. I was like, okay, I don't understand this stuff. And when I said I was from Corner Brook, this couple stopped, and both of these guys were opera singers, and they stopped dead and they went, "You're from Corner Brook? What is the deal with Corner Brook? We have met so many pianists and opera singers from there, and we know how small this town is. How is that a thing?" So that's again Gary Graham. So I just want to throw that out too. That it's, Corner Brook is known for its musicianship and vocal ability outside of Corner Brook, outside of the province, actually. So that's kind of cool.
Very cool.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing that, Phil.
Okay.
Now we're going to go to Andrew, and Andrew's in his own little bubble. I think I'm guessing in St. John's, on the other end of the island. That's his kind of home base. So Andrew, what started your journey into music? You went through Munn Music, whereas the other two did theater at Grenfell on the other side. So what drew you into the music program at Munn?
I guess in Des Moines specifically, it would have been. I mean, we're talking about music teachers and influences in our lives. I guess the one for that for me would have been Tracy O'Keefe, Tracy Fowler now, but Tracy O'Keefe at the time. She was teaching music at Ascension Collegiate, which is the high school out in Bay Roberts. I grew up in Coley's Point, just outside of Bay Roberts, and she at the time I was heavily involved in music and really interested in music in a number of different levels, but with her she had gone through the Munn School of Music as a saxophone player, and one of the things that we were doing actually was we were playing saxophone together, and at one point I was actually really interested in actually going in and auditioning on saxophone or saxophone or double bass again, because I was kind of bouncing around as for the interests, knowing that I wanted to do music, but not really knowing exactly the avenue to take me there, and she kind of helped sort of guide me into the decision to go in on voice, and because I had taken voice lessons for a bunch of years, which I guess ultimately it all goes back to mom and dad, right? For different music lessons and instilling that interest in music and seeing the value of it, seeing the importance of it. I was also not the most active sportsy kid. I was a little asthmatic kid who spent a lot of time indoors, mainly just when it was raining, which was every other day. So I ended up being indoors a lot. So I got to practice music a lot. So but they saw the importance of taking music lessons and sort of expanding your horizons that way. And so fast forward to high school after a bunch of years of taking different lessons and whatnot. And Tracy O, she really helped kind of guide me on that path to pursuing it through voice and going in, which was really just the greatest thing she could have done for me, because it helped kind of take me on that path ultimately that led me to doing different musical theater sorts of things and some even some kind of light opera type stuff or whatever, but ultimately sort of led me down the path that eventually took me in a folk direction, and then out to Trinity, where I eventually met up with Phil and Jerry. Fate, a series of random events, all sort of conspiring together to lead you, if you are open to it, open to the possibilities of it all. Can lead you down a certain path.
Yeah, I think that's a great definition of it, is to say, yes, the series of events happened, but we were open to them.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way of putting it. That's the step 2, is you have to be open to it, even if it's something weird and totally different.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the one that's gonna do something and be special.
Series of random events might crack open a door a little bit. You still got to go through,
Yeah, absolutely. So I know there's an interesting story about how the name The Once came about. So if one of you wants to tell that story, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it's just, well, we were playing around for a little while and people were like, you need a name. We're like, oh, okay. Putting Geraldine.
What's wrong with Andrew, Jerry, and Phil?
Yeah.
Or Jerry, Phil, and Andrew, or Phil, Jerry, and Andrew.
Well, we were putting our last names on it.
Yeah, Phil, Churchill, Geraldine Hollett, and Andrew Dale.
That's right.
There's no room for anything else on the
Yeah.
post.
Churchill Dale.
So we actually spent a couple afternoons together trying to figure it out. And one day we're just sitting, all of us had our hoods up, we're like feeling all cool, and we just we hauled out, because at the time we were doing a lot of open traditional sort of stuff. We were not thinking of this going beyond anything really. We few songs out of the ship or something. And we ended up hauling out the Dictionary of Newfoundland and Labrador, and we started going through to try and find a name. And we knew we wanted not once, we knew we wanted "the" in the title because they'll with Jimmy the Lips Fagan and
Joey the Lips
Joey.
Fagan from. Have you seen The Commitments?
Oh yeah, yeah.
He wants to start a band or a play, and you come from a bunch of different backgrounds. Watch the movie The Commitments, based on the Roddy Doyle book. The film is interesting, especially because none of the people in it were trained actors. They were all singers and dancers around Belfast who were cast in the movie to be actors, but they're musicians and singers first. And they get brought under the wing of this old hippie trumpet player called Joey the Lips Fagan, and he tells them that all the best bands have "the" in front of them. So just be "the" something, and you'll be fine.
So we went through it and we found "the once," which we found it sounded so weird and we didn't understand it at all. The once, until we read it, and underneath it had D, I think apostrophe WONCE, and we went, "Oh, the once, not once."
Yeah.
And then because we had never seen it written down,
Yeah.
but we've always said it.
So
Not once.
formal.
Do everything not once, get do it in a minute.
Mm.
And
Well, it was an expression too that I learned afterwards, after leaving Corner Brook, that a lot of people used, but we don't really use it in Corner Brook that same way. I think it's probably gotten around a little bit more now, but growing up, I had never heard that expression from starting out life here till I left to go to Trinity. Really, I had never didn't know that expression. It's
East
just
Coast.
a different. I think it's probably a different thing.
But it also is the same thing as now directly, but we didn't use that one because there's
Didn't use
no
that one
"the"
either.
in it.
Yeah.
Not directly.
And ultimately, we've had to explain the name everywhere we went, and in a way, it was really quite short-sighted. But I like the fact that every time we have to explain it on radio or some, in another province or in another country, it's always a little bit of a reminder of, you never thought you were going to be here, or you wouldn't have named the band something that had to be explained like this. So it's always such a lovely reminder of, like, you went further than you thought you were going to go when you named this.
Yeah.
When you named this, you thought you'd, just
Good for
play a
you.
show at the ship. So every time it's a little bit of a good for you. You're far enough away from home that you got to explain this to people, which I think is great. Beautiful. reminder.
It also didn't help that that this came out about 5 minutes after
Yeah.
he settled on name. That was unfortunate timing.
We've done shows in Toronto where "the once"
One in
was
particular,
in one
yeah.
theater and "once" was in another theater.
On the other side of the road,
Like-
in almost identical looking marquees, like big lit Broadway style marquees, and one said "once 8 p.m. and the other said "the once 8 p.m." So we make a little joke, because we used to joke about it all the time, and we're like, wow, we make this joke all the time. We were in the Winter Garden Theater, and we're like, hey, so we always kind of say, like, anybody here thinking that they're seeing the play once, and everyone's like, ah. And we asked, and there's this couple, and you could tell it must have been like first date or something, and their two little hands went up,
They're in the wrong theater.
and we were like, oh no, oh guys, you're at the wrong show, and the other one has started, and they're not going to seat you till intermission, so you might as well hang around.
Welcome.
So
So
funny.
it only happened once.
Mm-mm. Only had
Well-
to happen. Only had to happen once.
That's where I was going.
So that is that is quite funny too, because looking at you mentioned The Commitments, which of course features Glenn Hansard, who is the main character in Once. So we're really going full circle already in this this little section of the interview there. So here's a question that I always find interesting. You guys have done original songs that you've wrote, but you've also done a number of cover songs, whether it's a song by your friend or a song by someone more prolific like Leonard Cohen. And my question is, what's your favorite part about covering someone else's work?
Well, I guess making it your own, although that's the most terrifying part too. It's like, because we did a cover of "You're My Best Friend," for example, and I remember going, I do not want to do this because there was like 1,000 voiceovers that are musical harmony lines that they had put in there, but we ended up doing it. Honestly, all of our covers we do for a specific purpose usually, and that's really joyful. Like the reason why we did "You're My Best Friend" is because a couple friends of ours got married and they wanted us to sing that song.
Jill Kiley,
Yeah.
Jill Kiley, her wedding.
And so we did that for them, and then we ended up putting it on the record, and then that was a little more intense because you're like, okay, if you're going to do this, we have to make sure we make it our own, in the way that is true to us. So we took that song, which is a rocker, but more of a soft rocker, and we folked it up pretty much, and. Same thing, but I mean, Leonard Cohen, the fun part is, again, we got asked to do the Feast of Cohen in St. John's, and that's one of our first concerts, and 2 of those songs made it onto the record because we didn't know that many songs at that time. And but the fun part was to know that you love a song, like Coming Back to You was your love, and to take something and go, we're going to strip it down to just the voices. And we're just going to see what we can do with that.
Well,
So
yeah, there's
that
a
was
thing
lot of
about,
fun.
and in those choices too, it's like a lot of those early ones are a cappella because that was sort of our strength and what got us together. So it's taking a song that you love and playing to your strengths and hearing it that way. But what I've always found about covers is that idea, in terms of anybody who's like picking something and something to do, I tend to see a lot of people doing an acoustic cover in their room alone in front of their phone. So that says something right there. That's how they're hearing it. They're hearing something from this song that is so personal that when they imagine doing it, it's alone on their own, either piano or guitar or a cappella, but it's got that thing, which means that there's something that person is feeling in their favorite song that they're not hearing in the current version that they know.
Nicely put.
So the idea of trying to find that thing that you're feeling when you hear that song and have it come out sounding differently. So it gets a bit closer to the feeling that you have inside when hearing it. Like, so for "You're My Best Friend," for an example, it's it's quite a fun rock and roll song, and it seems a little bit more of a party kind of something, when you hear that, you'd hear it at a club or at a party or something like that, and you put your arms around your friends, like it's got a bit of that kind of a vibe. And in this scenario, when we were doing it, it's about 2 people very specifically, quietly professing their love to one another. So it's not about, we sang it at their wedding in front of a bunch of people, but the sentiment of them asking for the 3 of us to do it, knowing that the kind of version we're going to do means they're hearing the 2 of them intimately together, not just saying "I love you," but saying "You're my best friend," right? So it's trying to take that nugget that the nugget of the song itself, and trying to instill a different, more personal feeling upon it than probably the writer intended. So, that's why sometimes you'll do a song that you really love and it just doesn't work. And then you'll do another song that you don't really love, you don't really have a connection with, but because of the version that you're doing, because of the way that it's coming out, it seems to work really, really well, Yeah. So I think personally, like that's the interesting thing to me is trying to find that thing. I mean, we all pick up an instrument that we love or just on our own and sing one of our favorite songs, and for some reason it just doesn't have the same impact that it does when you hear. So then maybe that's a song that doesn't need to be covered. You know, you can do it for fun, but maybe it's not one that you might have as a signature tune or like put it on a record or something like that. And I think it's the interesting thing about it is that it's not as easy as just picking a song and strumming away. Like if you're really gonna nail a really really good cover, the reason shouldn't just be because it it sounds great. It should be because I connect with this so much that this person wrote how I'm feeling, and I'm feeling their words in this way.
And this is how I interpret it.
Mhm.
And this is how I want you to hear how I'm feeling about it, and it's tricky because there's arrangement stuff and there's it's a trickier thing than like it sometimes doesn't get the kind of credit it deserves sometimes, like just playing covers, or like just playing made up songs. But it like there is a real I've learned anyway, I mean, and I never realized before this band, there is a skill to that. Like there is an art to picking, a lot of people I'm sure have had the experience that they sing a song that they really love, and just because they want to do it and don't think about it too deeply and really loving it and doing the performance, and they play it for people and it gets like no reaction, nobody cares, and you're kind of left there wondering, it's like, but that meant so much to me. I really wanted people to hear how I sing this, but because there's something missing there in that connection, and it's always trying to find that pathway to use those words from yourself to make it really really truly capture yourself and someone else, right?
Yeah, I think one of the trickiest things with covers, like Phil is saying, there is the different, compared to something you've written yourself, is that frame of reference. It's the reference point. I mean, you're singing a song that you've written yourself in front of people. They haven't heard it before. They haven't heard it the different way. They've heard it your way because it's your song. Whereas with a cover, unless it's something super obscure that they just hadn't heard before, they use sort of this little gem that you discovered yourself and are sharing it with the greater public. If it is something that people are already really, familiar with and have a certain frame of reference around, like there's an extra challenge behind that, because you have to find a way to connect with the listener in a whole new way, like find another way around, because they already have a way that they connect with the song.
It
Presumably.
could mean this, but it could also mean this. Let me show you.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, best friend. You're my best friend. But by Queen it is a good example of that, because like Phil's saying, I mean, it's you present it in a very different way, and suddenly it goes from a song, that with buddies, arms around each other, maybe with a drink in hand or whatever, to two people maybe walking down the aisle, or two people just walking along the sand, or just it really just changes the whole concept. It becomes something else.
Yeah, it's a really important skill to learn, and I bet Andrew will agree with this. That and Jerry, of course, but that idea that when you go in, like I'm assuming that there's people who are listening now that are musicians and singers and all this stuff, and when you go to make records, when you go to make demos, you get into this sort of playland of all the different ideas that you've ever wanted to do. You can go ahead and do. You can have choirs, you can have string sections, you can do all this stuff, but there will come a time when you're going to realize very quickly you can't take that on the road on that first gig. So then you're left with whatever's at your disposal. So you end up covering your own songs, even if it's something you recorded. You will end up having to come up with a convincing, smaller cover of your own song. And I promise you, no matter who you love as a musician, they have a song that you like that you don't realize they didn't write, or that they're covering. And whether they've done it on a record, they've done it at a live show, everybody does it. It is a massive, massive help in terms of going down the route of writing your own music. If you can't play other people's music and see the way that that stuff moves and make those connections, it's, you know, you're losing out on a very, very tried and true method of learning how song structure works and how arrangement works and how all that stuff, by figuring out how does my favorite song work? Why does my favorite song work? Why has it made this effect on? Why does this acoustic version of this huge 80s jam with like horns and strings and synths and all this stuff, why is this acoustic version that's done in kind of bluegrass style strike me more than that original version? I'm sure we've all got songs that we go, I love that song. Someone says, sing it. And you're like, I don't know the words. If it's your favorite song, or if you love it so much, how can you not know the words? Because there's something that's happened in the arrangement, in all those things coming together, and learning those songs, learning how to, I say it all the time when I'm listening to music. It's like, man, if you love this song so much, just learn it. And when I do, it invariably, like Andrew was saying before, the door, right? It opens it another little creek, and you get to see a little bit more inside of it. You might learn a new riff, or you might kind of try it in a different place and find a new spot in your voice. And if you're always waiting to have something that you've created open that door for you, great. If that's something that you can do and you're that prolific, great. But most people aren't. So being able to kind of have that in your repertoire is really important. Like our buddy Mike Rosenberg, Passenger, he would be in front of 10,000 people in a massive stadium in Dublin, Ireland. And he would always, every show, he would do one or two covers, and people are there for his music. This is 10,000 people all singing every word of his songs. But he would still do a cover, and some of the production values of the show, that would be the highest point of the night. Would be like, he does a Sound of Silence cover that is bonkers.
Epic.
But then he would always kind of pick a new song that was sort of current, that he knew would kind of connect the room. And it's a great way to do that. It's a great way to take different people, kind of go, I'm not sure about this band, I'm not sure about whatever, and go and suck everybody together. Because in that one moment, even if people are into it or not or whatever, their type of music, they were dragged here, they lost a bet and they had to go to the show. For that one moment, they all collectively go, oh, I know that song.
Yeah.
And then they're brought together. And if they go, oh, I know that song, this version sucks, you just had a really great opportunity that you lost. So just doing something for the sake of doing it isn't always the best way to go. It's like, test it around, play it around, and see if you get a reaction from it, but mostly from yourself. Like, you're not just going, wow, I sing that really well. Like, if it's something deeper than that, that really, you got to go to something deeper than that. Because there's a lot of people with really high skill sets that can just pick a song, they just play it because they want to hear themselves do it, but it doesn't connect. And the world is full. There is more than enough of that. Try to find something that really connects with you, that people say, oh, but you got to hear so-and-so do this song. Yeah, no, I know Leonard Cohen, but you got to hear, oh man, you got to hear that.
You got to hear Jeff Buckley do it.
Oh, Jeff Buckley do it, right? Perfect example.
With Hallelujah, right?
Jeff Buckley sing Hallelujah, right? And then it's, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it, and looking at, you know, in a way, doing a cover is almost like you're strip it down so far that it's like, as you do it, you're the creator of that song now. Someone else wrote it, but you become the creator.
Exactly. If you're a musical theater, you're covering every song you're doing anyway. If you're classical, you're covering it anyway. Like, if you're playing it up, it's because that's a transcription based on an original performance by somebody else. So you're covering.
Yeah, and that actually leads right into our next question. Actually, we're going to open up our questions to the Q&A side. So Erin Smallwood is watching, and Erin's one of our parents. So I'm going to unmute her, and she has a question especially for Andrew, but to all of you as well. So Erin, go for it.
Thanks. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Really nice to see
Hi,
you.
Erin.
Nice to.
You're a bit late we were a bit late. We were on our way back from the cabin, so we joined
Oh.
in en route for a little bit there. But I just wanted to. Most of our kids that are watching actually are part of our musical theater program. We do have some of our choral students as well, but I kind of wanted to bring it back to musical theater a little bit. And just talk a little bit about your past experiences in that way. Andrew, I know that you have done musical theater. Mark and I both were fortunate enough to be in a show with you in St. John's. And
Ditto.
and I had the pleasure of seeing both Phil and Geraldine in Trinity. And also, Geraldine, I know it wasn't musical theater, but I believe you were in the Random Passage series as well, correct? Yeah, so lots of theater and musical theater backgrounds as well. And I was just wondering, do you guys miss being able to do those sorts of roles? Have you been able to carve out any time to do those? And just, how those experiences help to shape who you are as artists today.
Let's go first.
Go, Andrew.
Okay. Well, I think something that we've learned about the band and about ourselves as well over the years that we've been together is, I think first and foremost, Aaron, is that everything is always on the table, and that we are incredibly supportive of each other. Should something else come up, or like a different opportunity or whatever, the trickiest thing is more just finding those windows of time when the band is, say, off the road for a bit or whatever, and like maybe it's a role in a film that comes up for Phil, or something, and just fun, but it's obviously happening at a specific time, and maybe we're smack dab in the middle of a tour then, or maybe not, but if the timing works, we're incredibly supportive of each other to embrace any and all other projects or opportunities that come up, because we all come from different backgrounds, and we all have such a wide range of interests, between music and theater and the like, that I think it's really important. I think it's really healthy for the three of us individually, but also as three members of a band, to support all kinds of different opportunities that come up, because ultimately all those opportunities help shape who you are as a person, and ultimately as a member of that band. I think the reason, one of the important reasons why the Once works, and why the three of us work so well together, is because of those varied backgrounds and those different interests that we have. So, I mean, yeah, every now and then, to answer your question in a less political way, is every now and then I think about musical theater, and I think, it'd be fun to be up there doing that sort of thing. But I think
You're old enough to move into the father roles.
That's right. No, but I think I also think makeup artists in musical theater are incredibly skilled, and I could be any character I want. No, but
coins in the well, like as what you said before about it informs who you are as a person. That stuff is all coins in the well that we can all draw from later on, because you have these experiences and you come back and stuff changes. Like we were all in a production of the Pirates of Penzance together in Trinity, and there were people in that were full on career, I am an opera singer, and there were also people who were like, I'm not sure I can sing and I know I can't dance. And you put all those people together into a production, and anyone who has ever done community theater knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's all these different sorts of things. And first of all, that was my favorite thing I think that I ever did in Trinity over 7 summers there. It was an amazing experience, thanks to Bill Brennan and Katrina Bromley.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, immediately afterwards, you are able to go to that well so many times to draw out new things, whether it's finding a new spot in your voice, finding that maybe you are a little bit more, try not to be so cool and subdued when you play, like let it out and all that stuff. So of course, missing that, you go to that well a few times, and you need to replenish it after a while. So too much time goes by. It's important. Not only is it that we support each other doing it, I think after enough time, it's really important that we almost push each other to do those other things, those other interests, because we become a little bit of a hive mind. So if the three of us are just hanging out with each other and just doing the same thing and just having the same experiences, it turns into that thing where you start telling someone a story and they go, yeah, I know, I was there. So that idea to go back, like if any one of us goes back to do some theater or to do some film or to do some musical theater or anything like that, or for Andrew, to do a recital instead of a concert, because those of us all winners, we know there's a bit of a difference, right? And like that stuff's important because we know that individual, whoever it is going to come back with something new to throw back into the pot. The only problem that ever seems to come up is you can write a song on your own in an evening. You can teach it to your band the next morning. You can play it live that night. And if it goes well, you can play it live for the rest of your life. That's really a compressed amount of time that it takes for something like that to happen in a perfect world. Theater takes a long time and a lot of moving parts to bring you to that experience. And ultimately, that's the only reason I think we don't still dabble in it and not dabble is dismissive, that we don't commit fully to doing this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just the sheer time commitment. I mean, I know, and again, I'll go back to community theater productions. Think about school all day, rehearsal at night, or work all day, rehearsal at night. You do all this for months. You do 4 performances, sometimes 3, sometimes 2, and then it's all done. So there's that kind of like weighing of this stuff, right? And I mean, for us to be able to for one of us to be able to say, hey, I'm going to do a show. That's awesome. You should do it. It's going to take up 3.5 months.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, okay, that's a bit more difficult. But I mean, that's, these are the sorts of things that if we all got together and said, I think it's important for us to have these experiences. The band is taking a year off. I fully believe that the 3 of us would be like, yeah, that's a good idea. That's probably smart. Let's all go have some experiences and let's all go. And then we'll come back together, man, and we'll hit the studio and we'll get out on the road and show all the stuff that we've learned.
Yeah, I guess, sorry, Andrew, there. That's kind of everything that makes a band what it is, I think, is the support. And speaking of theater, you say you haven't dabbled, but you did make a score for Between Breaths with Artistic Fraud. So, you're still drawn back somehow.
You're picking up what I'm laying down there, Ian. This is what I was going to say. I mean, like even sometimes when a professional theater company like Artistic Fraud that and even when it's actually the 3 of us working on something together, you still might not be able to find that perfect window of time to do the theater together. Like we had the supreme pleasure of composing the score for this show called Between Breaths. And when the time came, we were kind of getting close to the finish line in terms of the score, in terms of the script, and all those moving parts, as Phil was talking about earlier. But then, of course, like many professional productions, they then want to perform that show for a while and maybe tour it even. And they wanted us to be involved. Like the way that show actually works, the musicians, 3 musicians, are actually on stage doing the music live. It's not canned music. It's not music that's been recorded and it's just pumping through speakers. It's happening in real time on the stage. And they naturally wanted us to fill those roles because were the ones who created the music. It seemed to make sense, but we couldn't find the window of time to actually do the do the tour, do the run of shows that they were doing. So we had to sort of hire ourselves, I guess. We had to hire 3 people that we felt could cover the things, vocally and instrumentally, that we had created, as well, if not better than we would do it ourselves. Probably even better. Better versions of ourselves. So yeah, even when you're something that you're directly involved with, sometimes you can't see it through, on every level of.
And the irony being, if Artistic Fraud was less ambitious and the show was less successful, we would have actually been able to do it. If it was just like a couple of shows or a one-off, it's like, yeah, we can do that. But ultimately, the fact that it was successful and that the company was ambitious and wanted to do it as a tour, not just as a weekend, that kind of makes that decision for you, right? Like that decision ends up getting made.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a couple more questions coming in just before we finish up. Thank you so much for being so thorough with your answers. It's a real treat to be able to get the kind of in-depth look. So here's 2 questions that are similar but quite different. Jesse asks, "What's your favorite song that you've written?" And Macy, who I believe just lives just down the road from you two, Phil and Jerry, asked what your favorite song is to do live. So your favorite song that you've written and your favorite song to perform with a live audience. So they could be something very different from each other, I think.
Yeah, for me, it's not the same song. Definitely.
Cool.
So yeah, one at a time.
My favorite song that I've written is called "The Blood Inside Your Heart." And we've never actually played it live because we haven't really gotten a version that we're all really happy with.
You're not happy with.
We haven't gotten a version that I'm really happy with.
Fair.
But yeah, so my favorite song that I've written, we've never actually really performed live. Good questions.
Very good question.
For me, I love performing "The Nameless Murderess" as a song that we did with Jody Richardson. It's the theater that came from me. I got to bring it into that performance because it's very character driven. That
the inspiration for the song is because of a play.
Because there you go. So, and I really like embodying on stage characters. Like every song has character, and some songs are just the same, and that's really nice too. But this one in particular, I get to be Catherine Snow, and who basically her husband's so awful to her. Her only way out in the long time ago was to have someone to have him killed so she can be free. But the only way she could be free was while she was the last woman that was hanged in Newfoundland, Labrador. So complicated little song, but I really love performing it. Charlie's is probably my most as well, singing it because it's so close and to my family, and the fellas just give it such an atmosphere that's so beautiful on stage that you can really feel it, and it's just there's an ease to it. And so that's my answer.
That one's from the second record, and the Nameless Murderess one's from the third record.
Yeah. And Andrew?
Oh, I was hoping you would have forgotten about me.
Never.
It's tricky. I mean, in terms of songs that I guess that I've written myself, maybe Foreign Shore. In terms of just something that personally, like I really struggle with songwriting. Because I really struggle with lyrics, specifically. Musical ideas come up pretty regularly. There's always different little, riffs or different, musical lines that come up in my head. But the actual lyric writing is something that doesn't come so naturally. But every now and then, the words kind of just fall into place. And Foreign Shore was one of those that didn't actually take very long to write. The concept was also not hard to come up with because it was very personal. It was about my father, and then, well, my father was the inspiration of it, and it kind of ended up going into a bit more of a kind of out there into the universe in terms of I guess the message within it. But yeah, like that song sort of wrote me, I think. But in terms of stuff that we perform live, of our collective original material, that's trickier because to be honest, it shifts a lot.
True.
But if I had to pick one, I mean, if I had to be honest in terms of like what's the first one that pops in your head right now, it's probably "Lead Me Lover," which is a song that Phil had written, which is also on Time Enough, our last album.
That one too. I like playing that one too.
He wrote it.
Yeah.
He wrote it.
Better.
But yeah, both those songs are on Time Enough. I don't think it's strictly because it's the most recent album. Although I'm sure that there is, personally speaking, I'm sure I'd like to think that there's some evolution that takes place over the years from album to album, and hopefully you grow as a writer, as a musician, as just as a human, trying to experience as much of life as they can. But yeah, "Lead Me Lover" is just one of my favorite songs. And it's just such a joy to perform live. I know like we did a whole bunch of touring last year. It's quite the three, the 180 for to this year, but we were doing a whole lot of touring all over the place last year, and we were actually doing a lot of that touring as a 4-piece, and we were having a bit of fun with with some bass, with some extra rhythm kind of going on, and some keys, and just a few different textures going on, which was a lot of fun, and a nice little departure for us for a little while. And every night without fail, that was one of my favorite moments of the evening, was just just kind of letting that whole sound, that whole atmosphere that accompanies that song just kind of just wrap itself around you, just envelop you, and it's just a beautiful marriage. I feel like I'm just like I should be getting a check in the mail from Phil on this, but it's true though. Like it's just one of those songs where like the marriage of message and music, they're just so in sync, with the lyric and with the melody and arrangement, and just that atmosphere that's created around those lyrics, because obviously they're written more specifically, like Jerry said, like he wrote it with her very much in mind, but lyrically there's so much ambiguity to me, even as someone in the band who knows both of them very, very well. There's such a beautiful ambiguity in that song that it can take me anywhere I need it to take me, from one night to the next. So I'm a big fan of that one live.
I'm glad, because all I'm thinking about is just not screwing about.
There's a settling in that happens with it. It's like
It's got to get through that first verse for me, and then it's.
Well, there you go. It's certainly great to hear you guys kind of gush about each other's work in the different parts, and oh
man, I'm their biggest fan.
Same here, buddy. Same here.
Awesome. And I know Phil and Jody wrote a couple songs. I think one was about Rudolph, and then the other was about the last woman to be hanged in Newfoundland. So very similar characters. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that's 3 of us together for sure.
Oh, sweet. Fun.
I had nothing to do. I had nothing to do with the lyrics on that one. I I helped out with the music side, but when you
That's
got
the
Phil Churchill and Jody Richardson on the case lyrically, just step back and just watch the magic unfold, man. Like, yeah,
That's
what a
I was
treat.
gonna say.
Yeah, so we have two more questions before we clue up. And the first one, I'm going to find her and unmute her. This one is from Violet Cummings. There she is. And it's about songwriting. We have a lot of aspiring creators of music, a couple people wanting to explore the industry. So here she is.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Hey, Violet, good to see you.
Good to see you. I liked your concert. I was just wondering, where do most of your song ideas and inspirations come from? And when you are writing a song, if you feel uninspired, how do you follow through with it?
Oh, that's such a good question.
That's a hard one to
They don't
answer.
make it easy, I tell you.
Inspiration comes from everywhere.
Yeah.
When you
Mhm.
least expect it.
I can do the follow through one. I
Okay.
just learned something new from my one of my favorite songwriters is this guy named Gregory Alan Isaacoff. And I was
Yeah,
listening
man.
to a podcast with him, and he was talking about writing down a lyric. It might just be one line, but he puts it on a post-it note or on a piece of paper and sticks it in the bathroom or somewhere that he's got to stare at it all the time. So it's a constant reminder that that's there. If you put something away, if you put your instrument in a case, it generally stays in the case. And if you're putting an instrument, yeah, exactly, right. And anyone who, that's nice for keeping your instrument in good condition, but it's not
Dust-free.
nice for learning how to play it or not nice for learning how to play it. Anyone who's actually teaching lessons and knows what they're saying will say, put it on a stand somewhere where you have to walk past it. If you
Guilt yourself.
exactly, pick it up.
Yeah.
So lyrically, in terms of the inspiration, even if it's just the idea, a person's name, the thought, what that thought was when you got inspired to write this, write that down and stick it up somewhere where you have to pass it and see it and think about it. So downstairs right now, on these two big, massive green Post-it notes, which I also found out, Post-it notes don't just come in this size. You can get all kinds of different colors. So I got a massive Post-it note. It's fluorescent green, so I cannot miss it. And I was working away on a song, and I got two verses that I really love, and I stuck them right next to my drums, which is right next to the bathroom in the studio. Every time I go to the washroom in the studio, I got to walk past these two things. And sometimes I look at those two things and I go, I know. Oh, right. I was thinking something the other day, and then to add to it. So make sure you treat it like your instrument and walk past it. That's the follow through.
Yes.
If it's present in your daily life, in all the hours that you're awake, something will come to you. And it might take weeks, it might take months, but something will come to it. Or that line will find its way into another song. It will find its way somewhere. Or maybe it's not that line. Maybe that spins it off into another song entirely. But it's got to be out, and it's got to be written down, and it's got to be in front of you. And nothing will look better to you than seeing a wall of all your ideas, just looking for somewhere to fit. So that's one for that. That's worked. It works for me.
Good.
Yeah.
I started a new little project lately. I've been writing down because mine come out in spits. It's like a line, a word that I love, something, and so I just have all these spits of things that I love, and I just write it down, things that inspire me, but none of them make any sense. I can't come up with a way to make
Like a linear.
I can't come up with a linear story. Never. And my brain, I feel like I don't even have the time to sit down and do it. So, but I do. I always got time to do it. But I don't make the time. So, because I haven't found a way to make it fun for myself yet, and that's really important in my life.
Yeah.
So I was listening to, I was going through like Songwriters 101, and I came across this little blip from David Bowie, little video, and in it he was talking about how he writes all his words down and then he cuts them all up and he lays them all out and then he forms a song out of that.
You ever seen the magnets on the fridge? You know, where it'll just be like words or phrases.
Which it
and all
must
that.
come from
So
that.
doing that
With your own words.
with your own words.
And I
That's
found it
really-
really interesting, and it has helped make me make sense of the things that are coming out of my head, and in a more poetic way than I ever anticipated. But all of those are still mine. I just get to scramble them up in a way that I would prefer.
The first example she showed me of this, I was watching her do this for a couple of days on the coffee table, and the first example of it that I read down through was like, that might be the best song. That has the potential to be like the best song that we've ever had. Like just in reading it,
Right.
going it's incredible how well that process works. And again, it
But
can
I
be-
mean, but that's what got me, right?
Yeah.
I love puzzles in my life. So piecing it together and making things make sense really was a lot of fun for me, and it kept me at the table for hours. Whereas usually I'm like,
Yeah.
what else can I do now? I'm going to do something.
well, that's what they say. The hardest part of songwriting is sitting down.
And it really
Yeah.
kept me sitting down. And I don't play an instrument. I mean, I'm learning how to read music a little bit now, just because I really feel that desire, and I'm building a landscape in my mind, so I can do that. So to just sit down with words, because usually I don't know about Andrew and Phil, but usually I have like a little bit of words, and like I have a little bit of a melody that comes in, but none of them can fit together. That none of them fit together at all. So what I'm doing is going, okay, one or the other. And so it's been really fun to do that process, and then look at it, and a melody starts coming out automatically. I guess I've been, playing around with melodies for so long, my body just naturally reacts to the music, to the words that are there, which is good. So I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, that's a really fun thing that I like to do. It'd be really neat to see what comes out of it, Violet, for you if you try it.
Violet, I'm so
Definitely.
glad that you asked this question, because I'm actually learning a lot on different approaches that I might like to start trying out. So
Yeah.
thank you, Violet, for asking that question.
No problem.
One thing I'll say too, as one who, as I've said earlier, as one who does sometimes lack a bit of confidence, in this department, always just be open to trying anything, because something is going to work for you. And it might not work for someone else, but it'll work for you, and you've just heard two totally different approaches in terms of finding inspiration, or seeking out your own muse, that one of those might work brilliantly for you. Both of them might work. Neither of them might work. And just remembering to not allow yourself to get disheartened if neither of those those approaches work, because I can guarantee you there is no right or wrong when it comes to writing. There is only believing or not believing in yourself, and the desire, just having the desire to tell whatever story you feel you need to tell. And if you tell it honestly, you can't go wrong.
There's another technical one to try is if you're writing, if you want to become a writer on TV or on television show or a web show or anything on Netflix, you're asked to write what's called a spec script. So a spec script is somebody says, okay, we want you to write an episode of Westworld. So you write it, you use the characters we've created, you use this world that we've created, but you create an original story based on that stuff. So an exercise that you can do in songwriting is write part 2 of a song that you love. What happens after? or write it from the perspective of another character. So you've always got something to go back to. So the inspiration is always there because somebody's already done that other part. But doing that is a legitimate thing. Like one of my favorite Sherman Downey songs is Anna Lee, which is the second part of a song by the band. It takes the characters from it and continues on, right?
It worked pretty brilliantly for Oh My Rudolph too.
Yeah, right. That's another one, like a spec song. What's part two?
Mm-hmm.
What else can happen to these characters? And then you look at that character stuff, and you look at a guy like, I don't know if you know Bruce Springsteen, if you've heard of him, but he got like most of his famous songs are really only about 3 or 4 characters over writing about these characters for 40 years. He still writes about the same people because they have these incredibly long lives. Their lives are as long as you decide that they are. But taking an existing piece of music and picking away at it, because it's also that thing that you don't have to really gear yourself up to write a whole new song. Just take the melody, learn that song, and change the words. You know, that's another one that works.
Thank you, Violet.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Good question. Good question.
Great question. Great question.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that answer. You know, we went in for an interview and we came out with a masterclass on songwriting.
I'm grateful for it.
Me too. Lots of new ideas to try out now. And before we move into our last question, I just have to point out the artwork behind Phil and Jerry because it's local and we want to celebrate that. And it's been a focal point for this. So Phil and Jerry, say something about it so everyone knows where it's from.
I'm trying to get it so you're not seeing a reflection. Wrong
So
way.
tell us about your living room.
There we go.
It's an Allie Johnston.
She's
Yeah.
one of our favorite artists.
Possible to get an angle where you're not just seeing reflection.
We have praised her.
No.
This is
Oh wait, there you go.
There you go. There you go. Right there.
yeah, we have
It's a
praised her.
star, beautiful starry sky, watercolor, Allie Johnston.
Yeah, Andrew got Phil this one year.
She's
Sweet.
my favorite artist.
Yeah,
She's fantastic.
Yeah, my absolute favorite in the world.
beautiful.
Well, we're throwing them all off.
Yeah, one year.
And then
This funny thing, she says this is one of her first ones, and that there's a mistake in it when it comes to perspective, and I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's perfect.
there are no mistakes.
But
That's right. No mistakes, Violet. There are no mistakes.
what seems like a mistake can actually get right to a person's gut.
Yeah, I had to do a shout out to Allie there. Allie is based in Corner Brook, of course. She has a website, so check her work out. It's really, really beautiful stuff. It's all just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because the last question that we have is actually about.
A little Allie Johnston thing. I want to throw this out.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Down at the rack a while back, and she's got in the art gallery down there. There's a painting that she titled after a line in a song that I wrote, which is, I think, probably the coolest thing I have ever experienced. And then I kind of thought, it's like, that is a sneaky way to make someone buy your art.
She really believes in bringing music and art together.
Yeah.
She does a lot of her work with music.
Mhm,
Great.
absolutely. So the next question is from Violet Halford. And we're going to build on it a little bit. But her question was, where did you film the video for All the Hours when it was live?
Mhm.
And building on that, what inspires you to add a video to one of your songs and, you know, work with the director on that?
It was Stanley Park in British Columbia. We were on tour of Passengers, and we ended up just going into the woods there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the
Yeah.
second part?
What is
the second part is what inspires you to find and choose, obviously it's between a director and you guys to decide which one you're going to bring to life. But I know you and Tom worked on one with all the Christmas lights and Sunny Slope. So
That's right.
what inspires those images and to make them come to life in a different way, the music and the visual aid to it in a music video?
A thought in your head that you can kind of see where you want to go with it. When we were out in BC, we did 3 videos there, and we picked that song, All the Hours. We picked The Time Where You Lived, and I think we picked We Are All Running. We had a day to shoot, 2 days to shoot them all, or a day. Was it a day?
It was a day.
So yeah, we were in Stanley Park because we were doing A Case of You with Passenger. We were doing the
Joni Mitchell cover.
Joni Mitchell cover. And so for that, the inspiration was to find something beautiful that's here because we're here now. And so, and if you can get away from people, so because when you do things live, you don't want the sounds of everybody. So we went into the woods for that particular song, and we trudged in pretty far too, I remember. And we did a few takes, and it was really fun. And then we got to go. We ended up finding. We're just walking about, and we ended up finding a big tunnel, like a walk-through tunnel that had really good acoustics. And that's another thing to find, if you can find good acoustics, like it'll just elevate the live sound.
Get the environment to do the work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did Time Where You Lived in there while people were coming by, because there was only a few people coming by, so it wasn't too loud. It wasn't because when we did Case of You with Passenger, there were boats. It was crazy. It was. That added to it too. It was really
Doing Only Living Boy in New York, in Central Park in New York, and like obviously just it's Central Park, so obviously you get a big crowd forming, right?
Somebody famous walked past, and it was like a zombie movie. Just everybody would just kind of started following. So then you're trying to do this quiet thing on your own. Next thing you know, there's 150 people hanging around going, "Sing us a song, Mike." Come on, Mike, sing one. Come on. I'm doing a video here. Shut up, Mike, sing.
But yeah, I think sometimes it's as simple as wanting to just capture the magic of a place in time, just where you were, like being out in British Columbia or Stanley Park, and just wanting to capture a moment in time of where you are. Sometimes it's much more carefully thought out, like this video that Phil put together for Before the Fall, which involved creating puppet likenesses of ourselves and traveling all over the place. Like last year during this this tour that we were doing in different parts of the world, and like there you go. And like filming things as far away as Australia, and but taking little snippets here and there, different little moments, and then piecing it all together to realize this story and this vision that you have in your head, and you're just trying to get it out of your head and into the lens and onto the screen,
Well, is it a video for a song, or is the song a soundtrack for a film? And I often think of, I connect it more the second way, to go back to what we first talked about with Gary Graham and stuff, the inspiration of, it's not necessarily wanting to be a songwriter or a singer or a performer or all those things. It's trying to kind of find something that ties a whole bunch of different interests together. And I've always been into, musical theater and acting and film and all that stuff. So it's a way to kind of connect those things. So I almost, when I write a song, the visual image is so strong that oftentimes the video comes first in my mind, the visual aspect of it. And then I try and write the song that would go along with those visuals as best I can, or those things will often happen together. So generally it's making a video. Usually if it's a video where the music is from the album, so you're not performing it live, you're using it as you're making visual images over an existing score, It's because of that. It's trying to kind of write the film that, or show the film that goes along with the song that you've written, which kind of, yeah, turns itself more into a song as a soundtrack for the visuals, you know. So I connect them very close together. They are this for me. They don't exist without one another. Each song, I got a video concept for.
And they don't all get done, which is
Nope.
sad, because I mean, some of them you're like, you have to base it on what you can do at the time and what, you know, your basic skills are,
But then you got to acquire those skills. I mean,
or find someone that can do it.
find someone that can do it. But
Mhm.
ultimately, at the end of the day, and this is meant to sound inspiring, it's not meant to sound dark, but
No.
really, no one is ever going to care about what you do as much as you do.
So don't get discouraged. Just be like,
Wait,
okay.
how come that thing didn't happen? Well, because I was waiting on so and so to do this and this. You got to get rid of that stuff. The best thing to do is acquire these skills on your own. If you really want there to be really good videos to go with this, learn how to shoot, learn how to edit, learn how to put all these things together. If you want to hear strings on absolutely everything that you record, either get software that does it and learn how to use that, or, you know what I mean? It's those things that you acquire these skills to be able to create the thing you want created in the way that you can do it.
I mean, that's the extreme sense, of course. But I mean,
I don't think that's that extreme.
but I mean, you can also just find people that are like-minded like you and meet them, because there's lots.
Yeah.
And
it's
then,
true.
like, you do videos. I have this idea. Can you do this? What do you think? And then you
Yep.
can work together to work it out.
I-
We've done that for years.
I know.
before you went
I
down that
totally
road.
agree, but I think that you're always, but we were able to, in those videos and those
'Cause-
other things that we did, we were able to speak a certain language that made sense in terms of performance, because we all have a background in theater.
Yeah.
So that's a skill. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That you're bringing to the table, and not just standing there going like, oh, I don't know, put the camera on me. What do you want me to do? I don't know what to do.
Yes,
like,
but you
there's a-
have to agree that you have a very genuine interest in learning how to work a camera and all that stuff. Not everybody's going to want to have that interest.
Sure.
They're going to want to be able to have the ability to work with other people
Sure.
to help make those things. I mean, you're in a typical situation, I think, in that situation.
Sure.
Like, I think it's great that you're doing that, and I think personally it's awesome because we get to avail of it. You know.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me personally, if I had to pick up camera preps, I'd love it, but chances are when I pick it up, I'm going to break this thing.
Yeah. See, in conversations that I have, I find it incredibly common that somebody has an interest outside of, if they're a singer, there is something else going on. There is some other interest. There's some other something that's going on with them. Like, even if it's just, okay, musical theater. It's like, all right, you understand how a story works. You understand how something is, pieced together in a way. Like you understand narrative. So then that's somebody who can immediately direct. They don't need to know how to run the camera, but they know how to get emotion out, or they know how to, you know what I mean? I'm talking about the specific things I like, but all of those things are counted as skills. You know, that you
Mhm.
do.
Oh yes, I think you should be serious about all of it.
Yeah.
So you know, if you don't want to go that far yourself, so you know the people that you want to work with, and
Yeah.
you can feel the connection based on what you're curious about yourself.
And what's missing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I can do this and this. What's missing in my skill set is this. I need to find a person who can do this.
Mm-hmm. I think we're going to clue up there, but thank you, the three of you, so much for all of your answers and showing that really, I think at the heart of everything in the arts, you know, which we focus on in this show, is that it's very circular. You know, it is, there is music, there's singers, there's actors, there's theater, there's writers, everything kind of comes together to create something. And I think, you know, it was worded right that we want to transport people to a magical place and show them the magic that's there with anything that we do in the arts. And I think that's a great note to leave off on. So thank you so much, Jerry, Phil, and Andrew, and thanks to all the Graham Academy questionnaires. Next week, we are going to be interviewing Camilo the Magician from BC. So that's going to be a really great time. So I hope you Graham Academy people can tune in. And Cornerbrook, you can tune in at the stage door. See you, everybody.
Take care.
And we're going to end this meeting.